So, what if the secret to success isn't about what you know, but actually how you deal with what you don't know? Today, we're diving into the principles of Ray Dalio. This is the legendary investor who literally built an empire by learning how to embrace failure. He started out as just a regular kid from Long Island and became one of the most influential financial minds on the planet. And trust me, his framework, it might just completely change how you look at your own challenges. And this quote, this single idea is pretty much the key to his entire philosophy. And it's totally counterintuitive, right? He's basically arguing that real success doesn't come from the knowledge you already have, but from how you face your own ignorance. It's all about embracing reality, especially the really uncomfortable parts, like facing up to our own limitations. Okay, so where do we even begin with all this? Well, we start with what Dalio calls the first and most important principle of all. You have to think for yourself. It's that simple. Because if you don't, you're basically letting other people direct your life for you. This is about taking a step back and consciously deciding what you value, what you want, and then building your own set of principles to get there. Now, Dalio has this really powerful metaphor for life. Think of it like this. Time is a river, and it's carrying all of us forward. And along this river, we're going to have these encounters with reality. These are our problems, our challenges, our big opportunities. You can't stop that river, right? It's just going to keep flowing. So according to Dalio, the quality of your life, well, it boils down to one thing: the quality of the decisions you make when you hit those encounters. So the big question is, how do we make better decisions? Well, Dalio says it all starts with a simple but really fundamental formula. See, when we run into those encounters with reality, we often fail, and let's be honest, failure is painful. But here's the kicker. He discovered that our most valuable lessons don't come from our successes. Nope, they come from deeply reflecting on our most painful mistakes. Let's break down how this actually works. Okay, first up, pain. It all starts here. You know that feeling when you bump up against one of your weaknesses? Or you just fail? Or you're confronted with a harsh reality you really didn't want to see? Yeah, it hurts. A lot. And our natural instinct, our gut reaction, is to just run from that feeling, to avoid it at all costs. But, and this is a huge but, if you can find the courage to do the exact opposite, to actually turn towards the pain and reflect on it, that's when the magic happens. You can start to diagnose the root cause. You can ask yourself, okay, why did this happen? What weakness in me or in my approach led to this specific failure? That reflection, that's the crucial second ingredient. And then you put it all together. Pain plus that honest reflection equals progress. There it is. That's the formula. You learn a principle from your mistake, a real lesson that helps you avoid making the same one again. And this simple loop, when you do it over and over and over again, becomes the engine that drives all of your personal growth. And look, no one learned this lesson harder than Ray Dalio himself. For him, this wasn't just some nice theory he wrote down. Oh no, a single catastrophic failure forced him to live this formula out in the most public and painful way you can imagine. This whole idea was literally forged in fire. So here's what went down. Back in the early 80s, Dalio was absolutely convinced a massive economic depression was about to hit the US. He was so sure. He went on TV, he wrote articles, and he bet everything, his clients' money, his company's money, all of it, on this one single prediction. And he was wrong. And I don't mean just a little bit wrong. He was spectacularly, historically, epically wrong. The market did the exact opposite and started one of the longest bull runs in American history. The fallout was devastating. He lost so much money he had to fire every single one of his employees. His company, Bridgewater, was basically just him, alone in an office. And get this, to put it in perspective, he was so broke, he had to borrow $4,000 from his dad just to pay his family's bills. Can you imagine? It was a total, absolute, humbling collapse. But listen to what he says about it now. That incredible pain and public humiliation, it wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning. He realized that his own arrogant conviction, that absolute certainty that he was right, that was his biggest enemy. And that failure, it gave him a deep, profound sense of humility that, in his own words, was exactly what I needed. And it was from the ashes of that massive failure that Dalio identified two universal barriers.
These are things that prevent all of us from seeing reality clearly. They're actually hardwired into our brains, and for him, learning to overcome them became his life's mission.
So let's break them down. He realized there are two huge barriers living inside all of our brains. First up is your ego barrier. You know, that deep-seated part of you that needs to be right, the part that makes you see constructive criticism as a personal attack. Yeah, that's it. It stops you from admitting your weaknesses. Then there's your blind spot barrier. This is just the simple fact that you can't see the complete picture. None of us can. Your way of thinking is unique, which means you're always going to miss things that are totally obvious to other people. So how in the world do you fight these two internal enemies? Well, Dalio's solution is a concept he calls radical open-mindedness. And this is a really fundamental shift in how you think. It's about genuinely changing what brings you joy. You have to replace the joy of being proven right with the joy of learning what's actually true, even if that means someone else has to point out where you're wrong. You actually start to actively seek out smart people who disagree with you.
Okay, so it's one thing to have the mindset, right? But you also need a system to put it all into practice. And that's exactly what Dalio did. He created a super practical 5-step framework that you can use to systematically go after and achieve pretty much any goal you set for yourself.
And this whole process is a continuous loop. You just do it over and over. Step 1, you set clear goals and you run after them. Step 2, as you do that, you're gonna hit problems. That's inevitable. That's the pain part again. Step 3, you have to diagnose those problems to find their real root causes. Don't just treat the symptoms. Step 4, you design a solid plan to get around those problems. And finally, step 5, you execute that plan. You push through and do the hard work. And once you've done that, you'll find you're at a new, higher level, ready to set even bigger goals and run the whole loop all over again. And all of this leads to what might be the ultimate insight from Dalio's entire journey. See, after achieving all this incredible success, he realized something profound. The goals themselves, they aren't the real prize. He says they're just the bait. The true reward is the struggle. It's the learning, the evolution that you're forced to go through while you're chasing them. In the end, it's all about who you become along the way. So in the end, Dalio's principles, they give us a map, but they don't promise an easy path. The journey of growth is always going to be paved with some pain and struggle. And so his work really leaves us with one profound question to ask ourselves. Will you have the courage to face that struggle? To seek out the truth, no matter how uncomfortable? And ultimately, to evolve?